Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are listening to this podcast. I am your host, Joshua Akpara. And today I want to talk to you about Black history. First of all, it is Black History Month, the month where we honor the achievements, the accomplishments of Black people in the US and Canada and even all over the world. But the question is, what is Black history? So I decided to look it up just to kind of entice myself to see what is the definition, what is the media's definition, what is the internet's definition of Black history. And I looked and it says a annual month-long observance honoring the contributions, achievements, and central role of Black people in history. And I'll be honest, I was very dissatisfied with that definition because when you type in Black history, when you study Black history, the very foundation of Black history is seen through the lens of a group of people who were forcefully migrated, forcefully moved out of their homes into a different land. And so when we think about Black history, the foundation of Black history, it almost starts from a place of bondage. It starts from a place, it has this cadence of from bondage to victory. It has this cadence of you were once in your home, in your land with your family, and then all of a sudden, boom, you were taken out of that place, placed into a place of bondage. And from that bondage, over time, you overcame. And that seems to be our knowledge, should I say, of Black history. And I'll be honest, I think there's so many flaws in that. Yes, we cannot deny the way Black people in the United States have been treated over the years, and might I even say, have still been treated today. The injustice, the systematic racism, the constitutions, the way that even African Americans are seen in society, the injustice and opportunities, the injustice with jobs, the injustice with jail sentences. Might I talk about people like George Floyd? May we talk about people down history that have been treated less than dogs, killed, murdered, men forced to sleep with their own mother, women taken out of their husband's home and used as tools and toys, men used as breeding machines. Might I talk about the pain and the torture that African Americans have experienced through the years in the United States of America? We cannot forget Black history. We cannot forget people who didn't get the option of drinking good water. They couldn't go to the same church like everyone else. Now we talk about the Black church, but we didn't realize that in reality, the Black church was created because people still chose to serve God amidst of conservatives and other cultures that said, hey, you cannot serve God with us because you are less than us. So create your own churches. You can't drink our water because you're less than us. Might I talk about the school systems where African Americans could not go to the same school, get the same education? Might I talk about the pain of simply being judged for the color of your skin? Black history can never be forgotten. But I have a problem. Our perception of Black history is so limited to 400 years. It's so limited that I believe that it's the cause of many of us having a skewed perspective, both black and white, of black history. Similar to the black African American people that has suffered torture in the United States, there was a group of people in history that for 400 years they were tortured, abused, mishandled, treated like dogs or even less than dogs. And those people, in biblical terminology, we would call them the children of Israel or the Israelites. Israel is the name of a person. His name was originally Jacob, and God changed his name to Israel. Jacob was a man that had 12 sons. And one of his 12 sons, Joseph, got an opportunity to go into Egypt, which, if you consider Egypt versus now, Egypt was a reigning country, a reigning nation at that time. And God would allow it for one of Jacob's sons, Joseph, to go into Egypt. And just as he went into Egypt, he rose up from being sold into slavery to eventually becoming the second in command in Egypt. And based on his popularity and based on his influence, he was able to, in due time, get his family to move, to come with him. Now, over time, as time passed, this same Joseph, now with his father and his other brothers and his family, they came, about 70 of them, and they came, and it was amazing, it was beautiful. But over time, the king of that time died, and Joseph also died, and a new king arose that did not know Joseph, that didn't care about his family, that was brought and migrated from their land. Only difference was they were not forcefully migrated, but they were brought from their land due to the circumstances and the situations. They were dealing with heavy starvation. There was a famine all over the land, but Egypt was the only one that had food. And so now this king comes, and the king has forgotten about the work that Joseph did that would even cause him to be promoted. The king has forgotten about who Joseph is. And at this point in time, Jacob, who's dead now, and his kids, the children of Israel, have gotten so much bigger, stronger. They've been working hard. They've been laboring. They've been doing their job, going to their 9 to 5 and coming back. This king, this new king, then says, hey, I don't know about these people. If we let them keep growing at the rate that they're growing, they might turn against us one day. So let us begin to persecute them. Let us begin to torture them. Let us begin to treat them as less than humane. And so that began this storyline of torture and just inhumane activities of people. Even it got to the point to where the king says, you know what? I'm not just going to torture them. I want to kill every child, every male child that's born from them. Think about that. I want to destroy their future by taking away their males. Sounds similar to America. I will do anything I can to make sure there's no fathers in the home. I will do anything I can to make sure there are no sons in the home. And he goes through this journey. And as he's going through the journey, there was a woman that had a child, but she saw something different about her child. And she says, you know what? I cannot bear to allow my child to be killed. And so she puts this child in a little small baby boat, wraps him up really good and puts him in the water. Almost like, I can't bear to see you die, but I'm going to trust that you can go somewhere else. And she puts this child, and this child's name was Moses. Eventually, this same child was found by Pharaoh's daughter, and Moses was found. And when she was found, she saw him, and just like his mom, she saw something special in him. Long story short, she decided to raise this boy, and Moses, who was born to a slave, now begins to live in a palace. And over time, he begins to feel this natural feeling like, I may be here, but I don't belong here. I may be living in luxury, but this is not my home. And so that feeling grew over time to the point that eventually he finds an Egyptian hurting an Israelite. And without anybody telling him what to do, he struck and killed that Egyptian. Time went by. The news went out what Moses did. He runs away. And as he runs away, time went by and he encounters God. And God says to him, Moses, I want to use you to go get my people who have been forcefully living in a less than humane condition. I'm going to use you to go get them out of slavery. Moses goes back to Egypt, and God uses him to do so many miracles, signs, and wonders just to get Pharaoh to believe. Time went by, and God then takes these children of Israel, takes them out of the land. But at this point now, they're not 70 anymore. We're talking about almost 1 million people or more. But they had spent so many years in bondage that now God is bringing them out of the land. And rather than rejoicing, there was a lot of complaining because they had spent so many years in bondage. You can take somebody out of bondage. You can change the laws. You can change their rights. You can change how they should do what they get access to. But one thing you cannot do is change their mind. And so they have spent so many years in bondage. And now they're in the wilderness on their way to this promised land that God had promised to them. And while they're there, after many years spent as slaves, God says, I'm not going to bring you to the promised land if you think your history started with slavery. I'm not going to bring you to the promised land as long as you keep thinking your history starts with you being in bondage. And so he begins to teach Moses, and Moses begins to teach them. And God, through Moses, says, you know what? I got to take you back to the beginning, because you have thought for a long time that your history started with bondage, even to the point that they were willing to go back into bondage. Because bondage was the foundation. Bondage was what they were used to. Bondage was what they have gotten accustomed to. And so God, through Moses, says, I have to teach this people who they really are. And Moses begins to write. And he begins to pen. And he dates back their history all the way to the beginning of the world. Moses writes the book of Genesis. He started off talking about, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the water. And God said, let there be light. Moses begins to teach this people, almost like babes, who they really are, who their father is. And he goes all the way down, teaching them how God created heaven and earth, and then got to a climax of saying in Genesis 1:26, that God said, let us make man in our own image and likeness, and let them have dominion over the face of the earth. You have to recognize that this word sounds crazy to them. How do you convince a slave that they were made in the image and likeness of God and they were made to have dominion? That seems almost impossible, because the very lifestyle they have been living for that 400 years was less than dominion. It was bondage. But Moses had to take the pains to explain to them that your history did not start with slavery, it started with dominion. That you were created in the image and likeness of God. You're created to be just like God, to have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds in the heaven, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that you were created by God to rule, to reign, to stand. That nothing about your history started with bondage. It started with secession. That God saw you and thought you to be the perfect one to carry on his kingdom expansion plan. Moses had to take that time to teach them their history, to teach them about the fall of man, to teach them about their forefather Abraham. Because even if you take someone out of bondage, if you never teach them the true history, they will always succumb to the reality of where the bondage starts. I love Black history. I love that we get to celebrate the achievements of people like Martin Luther King, Madam C.J. Walker, George Washington Carver. I love that we get to celebrate the first Black president, Barack Obama. I love that we get to celebrate the history of a people who have pushed through resilience over time. But I hate that we limit it to the United States of America. Black history is bigger than slavery. I dare say Black history is bigger than the United States of America. Black history is bigger than Africa. Black history started in the Garden of Eden when God would create you and I and said, I want to make man in my image and likeness so man can have dominion. Black history, true history of humanity, is you were created in God's image and likeness to rule, to reign on earth. And you do that through the blood of Jesus, accepting Jesus into your life as your Lord and Savior, and the Spirit of God lives on the inside of you, allowing you to move, to operate, to function, to thrive, to rule, to reign like God on earth. That is true